Okay. I will now call the regular meeting of the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control Board to order. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, we are conducting the monthly meeting today via video teleconference. The first thing on the agenda today, we will have the recognition of a quorum. I will conduct a roll call of board members that are present on this teleconference. When I call your name, please say yes. Steve Sullivan.
Yes.
Dr. Colbert?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. May? I don't see her.
She's not with us.
She's not with us, okay. Candace White?
Yes.
Thank you. Marissa O'Neill? Dr. Garsh?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, do we have any introductions this morning?
Not this morning.
Okay. Do we have any public recognitions this morning?
No, sir.
Thank you. Now, where am I? I guess the regular minutes of the October 19th meeting were submitted electronically. Are there any questions, upgrades to the meeting minutes of the October 19th minutes by board members? Here are none. The minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you. Mr. Gary, has anyone registered to make a comment this morning?
Yes, Chairman Hilton. First is Mr. Lawrence Palmer Ball, who is with us in person.
Okay.
Mr. Palmer Ball, if you would stand over next to Dr. Coburn here so we can have you on camera as you speak, and there's a microphone right next to you there.
Right here?
Yep, you're good right there.
Okay. My name is Lawrence Palmer Ball. I am with Palmer Products Corporation in St. Matthews. I was made aware of some comments at the last meeting and invited to come down and respond and answer any questions. I am third generation in the business. I have been working full-time at Palmer Products since 1986. I worked there with two of my sisters, my brother, and my wife, Rose May. Downstairs, we have 5 employees, plus my son works in the plant. I was made aware of some of Dr. Burkhardt's concerns when she called our office the first time to say that she was getting a smell from our plant. My sister was the one that talked to her. She let her know that we were actually not in production. We were putting an asphalt roof on our building. That roof, we had said would be, it was a section of the roof, would be finished by the end of the week. And Dr. Burkhardt said that it smelled terrible. She called the next week. We were in production. At the time, I talked to her. I gave her my personal cell phone number and told her that I would go out and, kind of peruse the neighborhood and see if I got any smell. I told her at the time that this would be an opportunity for us to work together to try and, help that in any way. I told her she could call my cell phone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Anytime I would take her call. And so I, went out. At the time, I really didn't pick anything up. I told her I would come, in her area. She said that was not necessary. That she thought that, maybe I couldn't pick up the smell because I was too used to working around it. I then said I would be glad to offer my sisters could come, my wife, and she said no, that she did not want that. But I told her, I said, okay, well, we'll continue to try and tweak the operation and work with you. So just call me and let me know if you get any smells. And so she did start calling on a regular basis. She would call whether we were in operation or not. And a couple of times when she did call, I told her, I said, we are not processing. we have nothing going on at all. We were just basically palletizing, product, getting it ready to ship. We typically run about 7 or 8 days a month, and we do that typically 9 or 10 times a year. So throughout the year, we're in production 9 or 10 weeks out of the year. The rest of the time, we are just packaging up the product that we have done. We have continued to work with the Air Pollution District. We've got what I feel like is a good relationship with the district. And we're open at any time for anybody to come in and see the operation. I actually offered for Dr. Burkhart to come to my plant with her husband, and I'd be glad to give her a tour and show her what it is that we do. And, same thing with the Air Pollution District or whoever. They can come, walk through our premises. I extend an invitation to the board. Anybody that would like to come and see what it is that we do. I'm actually quite proud of the plant. I feel like we have a very efficient operation.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you taking the time to come down and to give us an explanation of that facility. Recently, I went by your facility on a windy day, and I didn't smell anything either. So you said 7 days a month?
7 or 8 days a month. It can depend. And sometimes it just, we may start a run, and then if we feel like we need to tweak something,
right,
we'll shut down for a day, evaluate, and then run another day. But yeah, basically what we do is we have enough material for 7 days, and we do that once a month, and we typically will do that 9 or 10 times a year. Is how we run.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from board members?
Dr. Cover.
Dr. Cover?
Yeah, so around 10 months a year and around 7 days per month, something like that?
Yes, 7 or 8 days out of the month. The rest of the time, we're packaging, palletizing things, and then just doing other things. We're a small operation. Like I said, I've got 5 guys working downstairs, and then my son, Harrison. Well, he would make sticks.
I see. And I gathered from the last meeting, the process when you were doing this involves heating asphalt.
Yes, sir.
Right. And it's vented to the atmosphere directly.
Yes, it's kind of changed. We basically, I guess, last year put in a new system. The old way that we heated was with, gas burners. And a year ago, we looked into a whole new system and basically put in, and we shut off the vent from we didn't need the vent from the tank anymore because basically we're heating with it's a small package heater, and it heats through coils that have hot oil in it that heats the asphalt. And it has greatly reduced the temperature that we have to heat the asphalt to. We're always looking to be as efficient as possible. And I know that VOCs is something that's come up. Our goal is to have 0 VOC emissions because that's the most expensive ingredient in our mix. And so our goal is to have nothing escape. And when it's essentially a closed system the way that we work. And so there are just a couple of fans on the building. One is to cool the building in the summertime, just one of the warehouses. And then the other one is, just to help cool as well. We don't have air conditioning. The other thing I did want to say is sometimes if you go by our plant, you can see what looks like an emission, but it's steam. We heat our operation with a steam boiler. And so the operation and then the building itself, when it's cold outside, we have steam heaters. And so the boiler does have steam coming off of that, and the boiler is powered by natural gas.
I see. When you say that the steam boiler heats the operation, is that different than the process?
Yeah, well, so there's 2 things. We have the gas heater that heats the asphalt itself. And then that's just to heat the asphalt up so that we can, process it and mix. The boiler heats space heaters, and it heats the lines that take the asphalt to the mixer. And then we also will, heat, other parts of the building with the boiler. Okay.
So the asphalt in the mixer did you say was heated by an oil?
That's in the tank itself.
It's in the tank itself. And that's heated how, electrically or by the natural gas?
By natural gas.
By natural
That's
gas.
a natural gas heater.
I see.
It's like a small boiler.
But it's closed?
Yes, yes.
I see. Except when you're all done, I guess, and you have to extract.
It actually drops out of the bottom of the mixer into a gallon can, and as soon as the gallon can is filled, then a lid goes on it.
I see. So you feel these changes in your process should reduce any apparent odors?
Oh, absolutely.
Such as the ones that have occurred in the past?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because efficiency helps our bottom line as well. And once again, I would invite anybody that would want to come and see our operation with the board. I'd be more than happy to show you what it is that we do.
Okay, let me take you up on that.
Okay.
The VOC that you say is your most expensive ingredient, that's a solvent?
Yes, sir.
I see. Okay. Something like mineral spirits?
That's exactly what it is. So it's sort of like making paint is kind of like what it is.
I see.
So the goal is to keep all of that in the product that we possibly can.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you. I just have this one comment. The day I went over, I think Mrs. Burkhart, does she live on Kennison Court or something? Is that south of your facility or what?
It would be north.
North of your
Yes, sir.
facility? Okay. Because I know, have you received any complaints from Trinity or any of those retail businesses right there in that area?
Not that I know of.
It's a hot dog place, our Lonnie's. I went there and.
Oh, we love Lonnie's.
I did, and I asked them, they said, no call, we've never smelled anything over there, so, I guess, that's, I don't, any other questions for board members? Well, again, thank you for coming and
Thank you all.
and sharing.
Anytime.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.
We have some more registered.
We have,
There's another registered to make a comment.
are there any, has anyone provided written comment, Mr. Gary?
No, we do have another registered speaker, though.
Okay.
Dr. Mary Tyler Burkhart. Andy, please promote Ms. Burkhart. And you can unmute her as well. Ms. Burkhart, feel free to turn on your video. You are unmuted when you're ready to speak. I believe we can hear you when you're ready.
Okay, good morning. I want to
Morning.
elaborate a little bit about the Palmer product emissions. They are well known throughout the heart of St. Matthews as the Palmer fumes. People say it's the asphalt smell. Many residents are not aware of the protocol to register a complaint with the APCD. There are those who smell the fumes and are afraid to call in a complaint and have their name and address on file. Many are impacted by these emissions and are concerned. They expect and trust the governmental regulatory agency to protect them. In my opinion, this is not the case. The complaints to APCD began in 1995. These emissions, which go beyond the fence line, have been going on for decades. Finally, APCD issues a notice of violation in 2018, but nothing happens. Palmer products are violating their permit status while all of these people in St. Matthews are breathing in these fumes. How outrageous is it that no one knows what chemicals are in these emissions, how long they remain in the air, how far they travel, and the ramifications of breathing these emissions. This is so wrong. I will quote a local news report dated December 11th, 2020. Firefighters working hazardous materials situation in St. Matthews. The tanks at Palmer Products, which are old railroad cars, were recently pumped free of asphalt. Residue left behind was heated to 490 degrees, and there was a pressurized explosion in one of the tanks, end of quote. The president of Palmer Products said things will be better with the equipment changes in 2022, but he said the emissions will still go beyond the fence line. My experience is that the emissions are still present and the radius of spread is now much wider. People still call me about the fumes. This is not a 1 hour event or 1 day a week event. This is 12 days straight, including the heating of the asphalt, 24 hours a day of chemicals being released into the air every month. In addition, they can have back-to-back burns, tank fires, and fuel deliveries that create problems outside of the monthly burn. I don't see how this company can safely operate in this densely packed location. I hope every board member can visit Palmer Products and see the surrounding area. I am grateful that the board asked for a line-by-line response to our letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burkhart. Are there any questions from board members for Dr. Burkhart?
Not for me.
None. Well, thank you again.
Chairman Hilton, I would like to point out that we invite anyone to make a complaint to us, either by sharing their name and number, which will allow us to call you back, but you are also welcome to provide a report of odors anonymously, and we treat those all the same, whether we have a name to follow up with or an anonymous report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Dr. Burkhart. Moving right along. Are there any members of the public in the Edison room that wish to make a comment? If so, please raise your hand. And none. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a brief comment on this teleconference? Please raise your hand by teleconference and you will be called on. There is a feature that you can find on the participants list by hitting *3 if joining by phone, and you will be called upon. Yes.
Sorry, I was taking notes. I missed your opportunity.
That's okay. No. Yes, please.
My name is Stephen Houston. I'm an attorney for Dr. Burkhart,
Okay.
and I submitted the letter previously, which was the topic
Right.
of conversation during our last board meeting. At that time, we were pleased to hear the board request a detailed response to all those issues we raised in that letter, and we're looking forward to receiving that today. I did follow up at Director Hamilton's offer to meet with me. We weren't able to get that accomplished between the last meeting and this meeting, but I'm told that we might be able to get that accomplished after this meeting. And at that point, we might actually receive a copy of the written response to our letter. One thing I just would like to make clear, we have a long history of problems associated with this company, violations, missed deadlines, explosion. And we set all that out not to hear, well, we can't go back and fix that now. We set all that out to show the pattern. And while we understand ABCD's staff, and we appreciate that, wanting to help small businesses and make sure that they can comply. Right now, we have a situation where there's been significant changes, we're told, to this facility. They were required to file a permit setting forth all those changes, letting the public and you know exactly what's going on, what those changes are, whether there are vents to the atmosphere. If so, when do they vent to the atmosphere? Exactly how high they heat the temperature now, how often they run, what the amounts are. Unfortunately, they missed deadline after deadline after deadline, despite the staff's multiple attempts, begging them to file this permit application. They even offered, we'll help you with it, which is above and beyond, and that's great that the staff is willing to help the community industry do that. Even after the staff met with them and walked them through the process of filing this application, they still submitted a bare bones with empty pages, and they submitted an email with it saying, sorry, we left a lot of this blank, not sure what it means or how to answer it. Now, that's just unacceptable to the community. It doesn't allow you to do your job, and it doesn't allow us to understand what's going on over there. And that's why we're complaining.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Well, I'd like to make one clarification because I was on the phone call yesterday regarding this matter, and we did not indicate that the letter would be ready for release today, but only upon approval from the board when they were ready to release the letter and make sure that you all don't have any further questions that we need to address before we release the letter. So.
Oh, I just received the letter late yesterday
Yeah,
afternoon, so I
so
haven't
we
read.
want to give you adequate time to review the content,
Yeah,
and when you're ready to release the letter, we intend to release the letter.
okay.
Does that require, an official board meeting to do that? Or can it happen in the interim through some other process? Because again,
It doesn't require a board meeting. We intend to discuss release with the chairman, who's been in contact with us about this issue. And the board has already made a motion that we do this, so we
Right.
don't need any further motion to release it.
Yeah.
okay.
But when Chairman Hilton gives us the go-ahead to release,
Yeah.
we'll release.
Yeah, I just got the letter yesterday, so, I'm still reviewing the letter.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, please direct those questions to Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation. Okay. Any other questions from board members? Thank you for coming in and sharing your concerns with the board. Appreciate that. You will receive the reply to your letter after it's reviewed. Thank you. So let's see, who are we? I think that completes the public comment of the board meeting. Unfinished business, there is no unfinished business today. There is no new business. Committee reports, the policy committee, they met. Mr. Sullivan, could you provide the committee report, please?
Sure. The policy committee met on December 10th at 5 p.m. to review draft amendments to regulations 1.02 definitions, 1.11 control of open burning, 1.13 control of objectionable odors in the ambient air, and 1.15 version of federal regulations incorporated by reference, and approve them for release for a 30 to 40-day public comment period.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from board members around the policy committee? Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. Now we at the director's report, Mrs. Hamilton.
Thank you, Chairman Hilton, and good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to report that APCD continues to meet with US EPA and our air pollution control peers in a number of conferences this fall. And while we've done so virtually over the last 2 years, we're finally getting to the point where we're traveling again and seeing each other in person. And I do have to confess that I had a bit of, I guess, Zoom deja vu, in that I can no longer see my colleagues except in a small box and recognize them. I have forgotten how tall one of my EPA colleagues truly is, and when I saw him, I couldn't place him for the life of me. So Michelle King, APCD's Executive Administrator and Director of Program Planning, recently attended the National Association of Clean Air Agencies, or NAAQS, Fall Conference in Arlington, Virginia. NAAQS is the National Nonpartisan Nonprofit Association of Air Pollution Control Agencies in 40 states including 117 local agencies, the District of Columbia, and 4 territories. I attended the Metro 4 CESARM Fall Conference in Charlotte, North Carolina. Metro 4 CESARM is our multi-jurisdictional organizational entity. They serve 17 local and 10 state air pollution control agencies in the Southeast. And for the past year, I have served as president of Metro 4. Both of these organizations work to advance the protection of clean air, public health for all, and to improve the capability and effectiveness of clean air agencies. That's really important for us. Our work is very complex, and certainly having these multiple agencies working with us on a national front with EPA rules and regulations and proposals and our funding, and also on that regional level, when we have regional work to complete, such as regional HAZE state implementation plan and submittal development, they have the great job of herding us all to make those submittals a reality. After 2 years, Michelle and I really enjoyed seeing our counterparts in person, and I can't, for the life of me, express how important the coffee table conversations can be for us. It's a place to connect with people who have the same vexing problems that we do, who are trying to do innovative things with limited budgets, and where we can catch up on new regulatory initiatives and share our programmatic best practices. Jefferson County, Texas reached out to us to follow up on a conversation Michelle started with them over coffee about our engagement and community outreach here in Louisville. That was a great conversation. For me, my coffee table conversation was 3-way with some counterparts from Alabama and US EPA talking about air toxics. And by the end of that conversation, leadership from Region 4 acknowledged that it was time for them to really focus their air toxics program to be more like our air toxics program and to evaluate cumulative impacts instead of on a operation by operation basis. On November 10th, the board hosted a public hearing for the district to receive oral comments on a draft construction permit for Sunshine Industries' proposed concrete batch plant on Aiken Road in East Louisville. Public hearing was very well attended, both in person and online, and the district is currently reviewing the written and oral comments to prepare a response to comment document. That document will be made available publicly at the time the district makes its final determination. As always, the district takes the comments from the public seriously, and it will take us some time to prepare that document and make a final determination. The district and I both appreciate the commenters sharing their comments with us, and Vice Chair Steve Sullivan for chairing the meeting, and board members Dr. May and Candace Shobwhite for attending. I also appreciate all the time and effort district staff spent to be sure that the public hearing went smoothly, especially Shannon Hosey, Karen Thorne, Byron Gary, Sherry Steiner, Andy Purdon, Matt King, Cameron Barnett, Randy Schoenbachler, Michelle King, Matt Mudd, David Becker, Quan Wen, our county attorney, and facilities who provided us with a great sound system so that everyone could be heard. As the board knows, the district has submitted its request for redesignation to US EPA for their final approval. Our counterparts at Region 4 have been assuring us that publication of our request is imminent. EPA's proposal of a revised national ambient air quality standard for particulate matter is also imminent. Imminent is generally defined as about to happen. At this point, we are beginning to wonder if EPA is using a different definition for that word. That said, we do remain hopeful that we see these proposals published in the Federal Register imminently, and we will, of course, notify the board as soon as either of these proposals are published by EPA in the Federal Register. Are there any questions about that?
They're done with their comment process, and it's just simply waiting to publish it.
They are not. We have completed our public notice and public comment on that submittal that's required at this level. At EPA's level, it's in their signature chain to put it out for that public comment and review period before they make their final approval.
But their staff is done asking questions at the moment.
Yes.
That was my question.
Ms. Hampton, when do you expect to finalize the draft permit for the batch concrete plant out in Lake Forest?
Chairman Hilton, my guess is that it will be sometime towards, given our holiday here in November, towards the end of December, Matt?
It's a reasonable timeframe.
Okay,
We got quite a few comments, and I'll make sure we really consider them and respond properly.
okay. Thank you.
There is no time frame in terms of us having to, prepare that response to comment document. And I appreciate that because we received a lot of thoughtful comments both on this proposed permit and one we're still finalizing for Clariant, where we received over 200 and, well, close to 300 comments. So it does take some time to fully respond.
And that question related to that, are they kind of in the queue, like Clarion has first by process of policy versus?
It's more concurrently. Clariant is already prepared to the point where there are a few of us who are giving it its final review. So staff have been working, on the concrete batch plant proposal concurrently with completing the Clariant proposal. So I think naturally they're simply going to track each other. Public hearing happened for Clariant first. It's likely that that will go and be finalized before the Sunshine Industries, but they're in a different circumstance. One might follow the other or one might precede the other.
Thank you.
Okay. We are beginning to see fewer odor complaints. That said, we've received over 700 complaints since the end of September about sewer odors, and the recent rains and cooler weather seem to be helping. However, reports and impacts from this recent and still ongoing sewer odor event remains. Last night, I attended the regular meeting of the West Jefferson County Community Task Force, where MSD was asked to report on its efforts to more proactively reduce odors from its sewer system, and also on its compliance with the board's ongoing agreed board order to reduce odors from Morris Forman and the combined sewer system. It's my understanding that a copy of that presentation will be posted to West Jefferson's website. It was a very robust conversation, particularly with Councilwoman Dorsey sharing her concerns that it was time for MSD to take the information that this board had required MSD to prepare and begin putting some dollars and plans together to fix those areas that were most impacted first. So I believe that we're going to be hearing more about MSD's plans for how they will reduce these odors and make some significant investments into the combined sewer system, particularly west of 9th. Any questions about that? I've previously reported that the district applied for a grant from US EPA for a Louisville air sensor lending library project, which would provide air sensor technology on loan to community and school groups and offer air quality expertise from the district to help folks better understand ambient air quality and evaluate the neighborhood level impact of localized sources of emissions. Our hope had been that the program, once established, would have supported the district's partnerships with community groups, educational opportunities for K through 12 classrooms, and extracurricular programs, and neighborhood level air quality screening efforts through the duration of the equipment's useful life. Unfortunately, we've been notified that we did not receive that grant from US EPA. Our analysis shows that EPA made significantly fewer awards than announced for the grant category that we applied for, and instead funded more larger projects, including many that were very similar to our request, just larger. Clearly, these types of programs are important, and as a result, we're continuing to seek funding for this worthwhile project. Any questions about that?
No.
Today, the Urban Institute published a report entitled "The Polluted Life Near the Highways, a Review of National Scholarship and a Louisville Case Study." And they'll be holding a free webinar titled Life Near the Highway, Examining Environmental Justice and Equity in Land Use and Transportation Planning, to discuss local, state, and federal policies and monitoring practices that could help ensure a safer, healthier, and more equitable future of transportation. I'll be attending the webinar and look forward to hearing folks on that program. Registration for the webinar may be found at urban.org. And again, that's at 3 o'clock today.
What's the organization again?
It's the Urban Institute.
Which is what?
Land Use Planning.
Your local?
No, it's actually a national think tank. So,
Okay.
Finally, APCD held a Clearing the Air workshop entitled Keep Louisville Leafy, the Impact of Trees and Vegetation on Air Quality last month. I'm happy to report that the district has some upcoming Clearing the Air workshops that are shorter in length and more mini-series-like in scope. That'll be on Thursday, December 1st, which will be program on Louisville STAR program. Thursday, December 8th, there'll be a program on APCD's online resources. That includes dashboards for emissions inventory and also for odors. And finally, on December 15th, the Year in Air 2022. I hope that everyone will join us in conversations about these topics. So with that, that is the end of my report this morning. Are there any questions?
Not for me.
Steve? No, no questions. Thank you, Ms. Hampton.
Very good. Billy DeWitt, the Air Monitoring Program Manager for the district, will be sharing a presentation this morning on Louisville's air quality. Billy?
They turned the AC back on, by the way.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Director Hamilton, Chairman Hilton, board members. I want to give you a brief update on air quality, specifically criteria pollutants that we measure within our network that are set forth by the Clean Air Act. I know this table is hard to see. It's a copy of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards directly from the Clean Air Act that measure the criteria pollutants or that list the criteria pollutants to be measured and the associated standards and measuring timeframes with those pollutants. Each specific pollutant has a different averaging time and a different method of or level based on health studies and effects to both primary and secondary levels, primary being human health, secondary being effects to property, vegetation, animals, and visibility, things like that. I'll go into a couple of these in detail that Louisville faces challenges with, specifically ozone and particulate matter in a couple of slides. This is the current attainment status for Louisville when we compare our monitored data to those national ambient air quality standards. From the table, you can see that we are in attainment for all criteria pollutants with the current exception for ozone, although we have applied for attainment status based on 2019 through 2021 ozone data. That's 3 years of our highest 8-hour averages for each day. That data set shows us that the design value for ozone for those 3 years, 69 parts per billion. The standard is 70 parts per billion. And so we applied for attainment based on those 3 years. Next one, please. And of course, as we move forward, well, this is just a little bit about the ozone standard. Both the primary and secondary is based on that 8-hour maximum average each day. And the standard is 0.070 ppm or 70 parts per billion. And we use the fourth annual highest 8-hour average, and then we average that over 3 years. And of course, as Director Hamilton says, Clean Air Act's a continuous improvement program. The standard was lower from 80 to 75 in 2007, from 75 to 70 in 2016. This table is directly from our monthly board report, for criteria pollutant air quality data. It shows our current status, including, the year of 2022, which the ozone season just ended on October 31st. And so, I always have to give the caveat, 2022 data will not be fully, quality assured and certified for a few months yet. So this is preliminary, but we do have high confidence in these preliminary numbers. On the left, you see the fourth maximum for each site in our metropolitan statistical area, which also includes the two sites run by Kentucky Division of Air Quality and the sites maintained by the Indiana Division of Environmental Management. And of those sites, the site with the highest fourth maximum would be our Cannons Lane site with a 72 parts per billion for 2022. And so then we fold that into the previous 2 years to get that 3-year average. And right now we're calculating 2020 to 2022 at Cannons Lane at 70 parts per billion, which is still not exceeding the standard. That would be 71 parts per billion. So narrowly, but we maintain attainment with the ozone standard based on this preliminary data. And then we bring up particulate NAAQS, especially PM 2.5, because as Director Hamilton mentioned, there's an imminent reclassification of the levels PM 2.5. Currently, it's at the primary standard is 12 micrograms per meters cubed, and that is an annual standard averaged over 3 years. There is a second standard for PM 2.5, and that's a 24-hour standard. It's 35 micrograms per meters cubed, and that is simply the 98th percentile of the highest daily average for 24 hours. So we have to meet both the 12 microgram for annual, the 35 for 24 hour, and it's been estimated that the annual standard could drop to 10 micrograms or even 8. So that would definitely present the community with challenges if that standard is lowered to that level. Okay. Here's some of our PM 2.5 data. As you can see, on the far right, 2020 to 2022, our highest design value would be at our Durrett Lane site. And that makes sense because it is a near road site, specifically designed to measure pollution along a heavily trafficked interstate. It's actually along the highest diesel traffic portion of any of our interstates. And it's at 10.1 micrograms per cubic meter, which is well below that 12 microgram standard. But when it's lowered to 10 or perhaps 8, again, there's going to be challenges, especially when you monitor near a heavily trafficked road. The second table is for the 24-hour standard, which is 35 micrograms, and this is just the 98th percentile of our highest daily averages. We typically don't have any trouble meeting this standard. We're at 23.5 micrograms per cubic meter. The standard's 35. The only time we really see exceedances of this standard are July 4th fireworks on occasion and wildfires. We have come close a few times with Saharan dust to give us elevated levels. Last July was an example of that. So we don't often see that standard being approached, but as you'll see in this month's board report, we just recently violated the standard, that exact standard, based on some fire activity in the Fort Knox and Taylorsville Lake area. So we have several visuals and satellite data that show us the smoke plumes from those areas. Late the night of November 9th, the wind was out of the southeast, and so the Taylorsville Lake fire plume blew pretty much directly at our Carruthers Lane site. And so we had a 24-hour exceedance for that 35 microgram standard. We had a 43.2 for the 24-hour average, and hourly averages as high as 300 micrograms from that smoke plume.
Where's Carruthers Station again?
It's along Billtown Road near Jefferson Town. I always get those two mixed up, so.
Is it near the Gene Snyder?
It is, no, it's about halfway between there
Okay.
and J-Town, so, it's right beside the middle school, Carruthers Middle School, so. Yeah, we had to, a few years ago, move the site from Bates Elementary, which there's a road going through where that site was, so we moved it a little north, a little east. We still feel it represents that area of the county very well, especially when, the wind pushes out of, the southeast. Right. It's also our second highest ozone site in the network.
So that exceedance would have impacted people living in J-Town?
It would have, and anywhere south and west of there. The other sites, it didn't quite get to Cannons Lane, although you'll see there were some elevated levels across the network from both fires. We saw some evidence of the Fort Knox fire at kind of all the sites. We saw some evidence of this fire as well at all the sites. The 24-hour averages were in the 20s, but the Carruthers was, before it dispersed as much, was kind of most heavily hit by that, especially with the very, very high 1 hour averages.
And that's going to be the Taylorsville Lake fire?
Yes, sir.
So you would think Watson Lane would have been impacted by Fort Knox more so than others?
Yes, usually it is. I think the size of the fire, the dispersion, it sort of hit all sites as far as 24-hour averages goes, somewhat the same. It didn't seem to necessarily cause a violation, but I think the overall elevated levels leading up to the other fire contributed to that.
Really, forgive me for jumping in. You may be planning on talking about our issues with the air quality alert and how we use this data to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. So we do issue air quality forecasts to the district primarily. Those are ozone related on hot, dry, stagnant days. But occasionally, if we feel that particulate matter will reach over this standard, we will issue an alert, and we did issue an alert for the 9th based on the continuing elevated levels we're seeing. We have continuous PM instruments so we can see hourly levels. So based on those high levels we were seeing, we issued an alert that day. Now, if we have enough exceedances from, say, a fire or some other non-natural cause that causes us to violate the standard for the year, then we can complete a very lengthy process where we apply for an exceptional event to have it removed from our normal design value.
Did you say those are natural or non-natural events, or both?
Well, I suppose it depends on what you define as natural, and like meteorology doesn't count. That's not an exceptional event, but things like wildfires do qualify as an exceptional event. In 2010, there was a much larger fire at Fort Knox, which we exceeded on multiple days to cause us to exceed that 24-hour standard for the year. And so we applied for that exceptional event, and EPA did concur with that and not count it towards the design value.
Thank you.
So I welcome any other questions. This is the trend of several of our design values as well as MSA's GDP over several years. GDP goes up and the design values go down, so that's a positive trend on both sides. So I know that was a quick summary, but it was just over a couple of pollutants that we keep a close eye on, and we're always right on the cusp of those attainment standards.
Bill, thank you for a detailed report on that. It's great.
Sure.
Any questions from board members? Questions?
Just in the process. So what EPA is considering, hopefully going to the registry or soon to announce, public comment, is the 3-year span through 2021, right?
So our request for redesignation is based on 2019 through 2021 design back.
Is it a rolling 3-year scenario where you resubmit now that you have 22, or is that wait for some period of time?
No, they will take into account as part of their deliberation process our 2022 data. So, for example, while we may have been able to demonstrate attainment using that 3-year data set for 21, should we have exceeded the standard in 22, they'll take that into account. So
They take the opposite into account, should hopefully.
they won't move forward with it if it looks like we're not able to attain the standard. In this case, I think thanks to the truncated we are going to be able to demonstrate that we are hanging on to attainment. And I think one of the things to remember is that, our air planning is continuous. And while we may prepare that request for redesignation at a specific point in time, ozone formation here in Louisville, we know through our ozone formation studies, primarily driven by NOx, so that combustion of nitrogen oxides, rather than volatile organic compounds, which might find out how important. With that in mind, we know that there are multiple coal-fired electric generating units that are yet to be decommissioned, that will be decommissioned between now and 2028 within our regional area. So the trend should continue to go down with respect to ozone. I'll also note that EPA is currently reviewing the 2015 ozone standard of 70 parts per billion. And they will come out with a proposal either to retain that standard or, depending on the health safety studies, lower that standard. The lower standard, of course, will continue to present challenges for us, as well as a lot of.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? If not, Bill, thank you very much.
Sure.
Moving right along, the following staff reports were submitted to each one of the board members electronically. Are there any questions by board members on the air quality data report, air toxic report, enforcement status report, access admission report, and the complaint investigation status summary? So, no questions, no comments, reports are in good order. I will now adjourn the regular meeting of the board, and thank you for your participation. The next board meeting is Wednesday, December 21st at 10 a.m. I'd like to thank all our visitors for coming, and please come again. We try to keep those meetings at least 1 hour.